The European Central Bank says it'll create a new tool to tackle increasing differences between the borrowing costs of Eurozone countries.
The move is aimed at easing stress on the single currency and relieving fears of a new debt crisis.
The announcement came during an emergency meeting after the cost of borrowing for the Italian and Spanish governments reached their highest level in years.
Well, Carsten Brzeski is Chief Economist at ING Germany. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. How might this new instrument announced by the European Central Bank help?
Well, how will it help? It will calm down financial markets. How could it exactly be filled out? This means purchasing assets again. And that is the funny thing, because the ECB only last week said that they will stop with their net asset purchase program by the end of this month. What they will have to do now is actually reintroduce a new asset purchase program, because that is, I think, what the experience of the last 10 years tells us. If the ECB really wants to control spreads, so the differences between Italian bond yields and German bond yields, they will have to purchase bonds. There's no other way around it.
So these might be seen as rather desperate measures. How concerned should we be about the economic situation in Europe right now?
Well, I think the economic situation in Europe is concerning. It is worrisome. We are already in a kind of de facto stagnation. We still have a war in Ukraine. We have high inflation, which will dent consumer spending, which will increase costs for producers. And we still have supply chain frictions. Think of the lockdown in Shanghai. So I don't think that there is any improvement in the cards anytime soon. So Europe is heading towards stagnation. This is not a recession like 2008 or 2012, but this is really stagnation. And this stagnation, plus the fact that the ECB is now normalizing monetary policy, is rising interest rates in the next couple of months, has increased pressure on the higher indebted countries in the southern part of Europe.
So let's talk a bit more about that and yields. Which countries in particular are getting stung by the bond rout, and why?
Well, I think, first of all, it is always Italy. Why is that? Because Italy is the third largest Eurozone economy. Italy has a high government debt, so high government debt to GDP ratio. And Italy is always seen by financial markets as the elephant in the room. And with every time there is tension in financial markets, when there's tension in the Eurozone, all the pressure is on Italy. Other countries like Spain, for example, or Greece again, are smaller, have different situations when it comes to their public finances. But Italy is always seen as the test case for Europe. So will European policymakers, like in this case now the central bank, but also politicians, will they get their acts together in order to I wouldn't say save Italy, but stabilize Italy and above all, stabilize the monetary union.
And what other policies might the European Central Bank have in their toolkit?
Well, I think there is another one. The ECB does or conducts monetary policy also via the banks. So there are these so-called liquidity operations where commercial banks can get money from the ECB. So here the ECB could try to make a distinction between geographies, so provide more beneficiary conditions to Southern European banks than to Northern European banks. This could be clearly one thing. And the other one is words. Don't forget that central banks can be powerful in their communication, in their words, if they come across as really being committed and determined. So if the ECB was now ready to say, well, financial markets, listen very carefully. There is no way that you can speculate against Italy. We will, this sounds familiar, do whatever it takes and really trust us. It will be enough. Well, these words can actually be much more valuable than additional euros spent on bond purchases.
Carsten Brzeski from ING, thank you very much indeed.